All right, well, the whole Michigan scandal or whatever you want to call it from last season with the Connor Stallions and the sign stealing and all that is in the news again. Over the last week or so, a report from the NCAA was leaked. And I've seen all your comments asking me about it. Good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. That's right, it is me, Uncle Lou, live on LouTube for you. Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're not, I post pointless, barely watchable college football videos almost every single day of the year. We do a bunch of live streams. I have call-in shows every Tuesday and Thursday night. The season's getting ready to start in a couple of weeks. I live stream all day on Saturdays. We have a really good time here. I don't know really what I can say about the Michigan situation, let's call it, that I didn't say in real time as it was happening live right before our eyes last season. And that's kind of the only issue I have with anything that's gone on. And I guess I'll reiterate some of the points I made and give you some of my thoughts on, maybe what's changed between then and now or whatever. But pretty much everybody in the college football world can agree on a couple of things here surrounding what happened with Michigan and Connor Stallions and the sign stealing. I think number one, you can start with this. Michigan was the best football team in the country last year. That was, it was kind of obvious during the season. Well, I guess during the season, it was obvious that they were one of the best teams. You could make arguments for a couple of different teams over the course, during the course of the season, but they were very dominant from beginning to end. They went on to win the Big Ten. They won their playoff game. They won the national championship game. They were 15-0. I mean, they were clearly the best team on the football field last season. That's number one. This wasn't some kind of a fluke season where a weird team wins the national title for some kind of strange reason. They were the best team. Even Ohio State fans have got to admit that. It burns you up, but they were the best team last year. I think everybody has to agree on that, right? We saw it play out on the field. Number two, they were not actively cheating in wins against Penn State, in wins against Ohio State, in wins in the Big Ten championship game, a win over Bama in the playoffs, a win over Washington in the national title game. There was no active cheating going on in those games. I think everybody can agree on that. Everybody needs to agree, including Michigan fans, on the next part also, which is that Michigan did cheat for a number of years, which put them in a position to do what they did at the end of last season. That's not to say that without the sign stealing, they would not have won the national championship. You can't draw a straight line from one point to the other there. There's no way to prove that. We don't know. So part of the argument that Michigan fans were making last year that what they were doing didn't matter or that it had no effect, that's unprovable one way or the other. I think it's a ridiculous argument to make. These college programs are like multi-million-dollar corporations. They don't do anything for no reason. There's always a reason. Maybe we disagree with the reason. Maybe the team ends up being wrong in their reasoning. Why does a team hire a certain coach? Because they think that coach is going to help them win. Does that coach always help them win? No. Sometimes coaches are hired and they're terrible and they get fired 3 years later. But they don't do anything for no reason. So Michigan thought it helped them. Michigan thought they needed to do that or that doing that would give them an advantage. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it. And to say, well, it was just Connor Stallions. And again, this is still talking about just sort of where we were at in a headspace last year. To say that it was just Connor Stallions, I don't know that anybody ever truly believed that. Michigan fans, it's cognitive dissonance to pretend that Connor Stallions was doing this in a bubble and that no one above or beyond him had any idea or clue what was going on. It's just a ridiculous notion. And most people understood that last season when we found all this out. Going on to things that everyone should have known, should know now, and should be able to agree on. It was Connor Stallions on the sideline of the Central Michigan game. That was obvious in real time. The minute we saw the video, it was clear. to anybody that wasn't completely blinded by or stuck in the quote unquote maze haze. You had a few Michigan fans, well, they can't prove that guy. It was Connor Stallions. And the report comes out now, and the NCAA said, yeah, guess what? It was Connor Stallions. So I feel like those are some things that just everyone should agree on. And then you move into the other area of discussion here, where I'll openly admit I don't expect, and nor have I seen everyone agree on. And that is what should have happened last year while this was going on, and what should happen now. And I'll start with my opinions on last year. I stated them over and over again on video and live shows and everywhere else. I don't recall a situation where a team was caught cheating in real time, like was the case with Michigan last year. And that sort of separates what the Michigan case from some of the other cases that the NCAA has dealt with in the past. Usually we find out about these things a year later, 2 years later, whatever the case. You go back to some of the recent kind of cheating scandals, whether you're talking about Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee and the illegal payment to recruits in McDonald's bags or Chick-fil-A bags or whatever it was. We didn't find out about that in real time when it was happening. You find out about it later, right? You go back to Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss, same thing. We didn't know about that. We didn't know Hugh Freeze was texting prostitutes as he was texting prostitutes. You found out about all that kind of thing later. And there's literally hundreds of examples from very, very minor to very severe of teams who have been caught breaking the rules, twisting the rules, doing things they knew were not allowed, impermissible, whatever. But we found out about it after it had already happened. And in a lot of cases, when all the people associated with the behavior had moved on, whether it was players that had transferred to another school or graduated or moved on to the NFL, or whether it was coaches that had moved on. And so you find yourself in a situation, if you're the NCAA, or even if you're a college football fan and you're looking at this and you're going, okay, who should be punished here? And how should the punishment be handed out? All the people that did anything wrong are gone. And you used to hear this argument all the time from college football fans. It's not fair to punish these players on this team now and these coaches on this team now when everybody that did anything wrong 3 years ago is gone. Like, it's a new coach. It's all new players, and you're going to give them a bowl ban or whatever the case was with the punishment. Like, the whole thing was like, it doesn't seem right. But the problem always was, if you're the NCAA, you only have power and control. What little power and control you have at all only applies to schools and institutions in the now, right? You can't, the NCAA can't punish a coach who has moved on to the NFL or who is retired. They can't punish a player that's moved on and all that. So the NCAA was always handing down these punishments 2 and 3 years later when everyone involved with the infractions was long gone. That wasn't the case with what was going on with Michigan last year. Michigan was caught cheating in real time in the current season. They were literally caught cheating in the now. Not an investigation that revealed something from years past. Now, the sign stealing thing had a past. It went back in time. But when it was discovered, it was currently going on in a college football season. And that's what separated the Michigan thing from everything else last year when we found out about it. And that was the point of a lot of debate and discussion last year was, look, you've got an opportunity to do something about this now. Whatever the punishment would have been, at least the punishment would have been doled out to those involved in breaking the rules. And you would have some pushback on that, mostly by Michigan fans that would say, well, the players didn't know, or this particular coach didn't know. They were benefiting, though, was my point. Whether any particular player or coach knew what Connor Stallions and other members of that coaching staff and support staff were up to in terms of the sign stealing operation that was going on with Connor Stallions, they were benefiting from that, right? The entire offense was benefiting every time the play caller knew the defensive play call for the other team. The entire defense was benefiting every time that defensive coordinator knew the play call for the opposing offense. So the debate was, should something be done in the now? Again, this was middle of last season about when this was going on, right? And what should that punishment be? Who should hand it out? And we found ourselves in a situation where everybody was really sitting back waiting on the other person to do something, it seemed like, right? You had the NCAA. Well, it takes them, it takes the NCAA, the old joke, it takes the NCAA 6 hours to watch 60 minutes. Like it just takes them forever to do anything. So as much as I wish and hoped and thought that the NCAA should have done something in real time, in the moment when all this was going on, I never actually thought that was going to happen, because I've been watching college football long enough to know that it takes the NCAA twice as long to do anything as it should. So then you had the Big Ten Conference as an entity or as an institution, right? What were they going to do? Well, they ended up suspending Harbaugh for 3 games at the end of the regular season. The Penn State game, I believe it was the Maryland game, and then the Ohio State game, right? So to the Big Ten's credit, they at least did something. More on that in a minute, because I don't think it was enough, and I think they had another option there. And then you had some people sitting back going, well, the College Football Playoff Committee should just refuse to rank Michigan. That's sort of while I guess it's not technically considered a punishment, and I don't believe that the College Football Playoff Committee is even allowed to hand out punishments. There's no power or authority given to the playoff committee to hand out punishments. They can punish you by not voting for you, right? But of course, the playoff committee didn't do that, and never really was gonna do that. They sort of kicked the can down the road to the NCAA and sort of said, well, unless the NCAA does something, we're not gonna take that into account when we're ranking and voting for our teams in the playoff ranking every week. So nothing happened there. I think what should have happened is, the Big Ten, I think, probably should have ruled Michigan ineligible for the Big Ten title game. I said it at the time. I said it multiple times over the course of the season once this news was sort of out in public and everyone kind of knew what was going on. I felt like that was the punishment that would sort of check all the boxes. It would punish the people involved in what was going on, which would have been, Michigan as a football program. Again, not to say that the backup left tackle or the starting center or the starting cornerback knew exactly what was going on with Connor Stallions and the coaches and the sign stealing, but they were clearly benefiting from that cheating, right? Some or all of the coaches obviously knew. To deny that is just being blatantly blind. So had the Big Ten come out and said, we've got enough evidence to see what's going on here, which they did. It was crystal clear in real time what was going on. Crystal clear. To anybody with an open mind looking at it, it was obvious what was going on. They could have come out and said, we're going to deem Michigan ineligible for the Big Ten title. That would have got the playoff committee off the hook had they chosen to use that to get them off the hook, right? They could have said, well, if the Big Ten is ruling Michigan ineligible for the Big Ten title game, we're not going to rank them, at least not within the top 4, right? You would so. And to say, well, the Big Ten can't do that. Of course they can do that. You go back to 2020, right? The Big Ten changed the requirements for what it took to get to the Big Ten title game in the middle of the season in 2020. And I know 2020 is a weird kind of outlier season. It was the COVID season. You had strange scheduling models everywhere. Different teams played different amount of games. But just quick refresher here, if you don't remember, the Big Ten had a rule specifically for 2020 that you had to play a certain number of regular season games in order to be eligible to play in the Big Ten title game. Well, two things became clear towards the end of the regular season. Number one, Ohio State was the best team in the Big Ten. Number two, they weren't going to be able to play enough games to meet the Big Ten's requirement for entry into the Big Ten title game. So what did the Big Ten do? They went in the middle of the season and they changed the rules and the requirements for what it took to play in the Big Ten title game, which allowed Ohio State to get into the Big Ten title game and then, of course, win it and make the playoffs. They could have taken a similar approach last season and just deemed Michigan ineligible for the Big Ten title game. And I think that's probably what they should have done. Now, maybe Michigan sues. Who knows what would have come of that with lawsuits? Maybe an injunction gets filed. I mean, I can't go down the road of what if, but I do think the Big Ten had that step that they could have taken that they didn't take. I think they probably should have. And then you get to the NCAA side of things, which is kind of where we're at now. So sort of everything I've talked about so far is sort of stuff we already knew happened last season, what I thought should have happened by the different parties involved. Now you kind of fast forward to now. There's this leak of the notice of allegations filed against Michigan by the NCAA. And, in this notice of allegations, the NCAA confirms that, yes, it was Connor Stalions on the sideline at Central Michigan. They don't know how he got there or who let him in. And I think Jim McElwain needs to answer for that. I mean, head coaches are responsible for what goes on underneath them, period. End of story. That's all there is to it. And the fact that this guy was roaming the sidelines in disguise, like Where's Waldo with recording glasses, it's again, I'm not as confident in this as I was that Michigan was cheating when we found out last year. It's hard for me to imagine that Jim McElwain and everyone else on that Central Michigan staff didn't know that Connor Stalions was there roaming around. I mean, McElwain and Stalions had worked together in the past. It's not like McElwain didn't know who Connor Stalions was. If Jim McElwain walked past Connor Stalions in Walmart, he would say, "Oh, it's Connor Stalions." That's hard for me to believe. And maybe Central Michigan needs to answer some questions about that. But the NCAA comes out and, they confirm that multiple coaches knew what was going on, I guess, including Sharon Moore. But again, this is all stuff that anybody with half a brain knew last season. The idea that one unpaid staffer, Connor Stalions, hatched this plan on his own, implemented this plan on his own, was able to do this with going to sending people, buying all these tickets, going to the other games, sitting on the 50-yard line right behind the opposing team's bench, recording their signals for the entire game, being on the sidelines. The idea that he was doing that in a bubble, and that, number one, he never passed that information off to anyone else. He never gave that information to any assistant coaches. He never gave it to the coordinators. He never implemented any of that information that he gained during games on Saturdays is absurd. Of course he did. He went from an unpaid nobody to a paid a position on the staff. There's video of every single game. He's standing right next to the coordinators, feeding them information, and then the coordinators send the play signal in. It's just, and again, it was obvious when it was happening. So the fact that this NCAA report, it comes out or is about to come out now 9-10 months after the fact, you just look at it and, it's just, well, duh. Like everyone knew that. Okay, so now what do you do? What should the punishment be now? And does it even matter? To answer the second question first, no. Whatever they do now doesn't matter. You can't fix what you messed up last. You had an opportunity, and look, I keep going back to this because to me this is the biggest thing. It was caught in real time when it was happening, and nothing was done. Short of Harbaugh being suspended for 3 games, but he was only suspended for the 3.5 hours on Saturday while the games were played. He was there, he was able to attend practices and do all the normal stuff that a coach does. It's not like he had to sit at home in a closet with no cell phone for 3 weeks. Like, that's not what happened. He just wasn't on the sideline for 3.5 hours on 3 Saturdays last year. That's it. That's all that happened. And the fact that we just, it was caught in real time, again, going back to the big problem everybody has with the NCAA, they find this stuff out 2 or 3 years after it happens. Then it takes them 2 or 3 years to investigate it. So by the time normally that the NCAA is releasing their allegations or notice of allegations or punishments handed out to a team or whatever the case, normally when that happens, all of the people involved in that are gone, because you're talking about a situation or an infraction that happened years ago, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, Kentucky got hit this week basically for no-show jobs. It sounds like they basically were paying, I think it was it 11 players? Anyway, the numbers are relevant, I guess. But they were paying players as though they had a job, when in fact, of course, they did not have a job. And Kentucky has to vacate all their wins and all this kind of thing. And sort of another point here, because I hear people mentioning this, and I think there's some confusion around this, but the NCAA has no control, say-so, or authority at all over the college football playoff. The NCAA cannot take away Michigan's national title. I've heard some people sort of suggest that's not going to happen. The only entity that could take Michigan's national title away is the College Football Playoff Committee. They operate separate from the NCAA. You need to look at it sort of the same way you look at the Heisman, the Heisman board or the Heisman committee. So if you want to use the Reggie Bush thing as an example, again, something that people are often confused on, the NCAA never took Reggie Bush's Heisman away. Never. Because they can't. The NCAA has zero authority, say-so, power, influence, anything over the Heisman board. The Heisman board is a totally separate entity apart from it's got nothing to do with the NCAA. The Heisman board is a group of people who get together at the end of the year and vote on who they think the best college football player is, right? It's a combination of media and past Heisman winners. It's got nothing to do with the NCAA. It was the Heisman committee who took Reggie Bush's Heisman away, not the NCAA. And it was the Heisman committee who just recently gave it back, not the NCAA. The NCAA can't take Heisman's away. They can't give Heisman's back. Same thing now with the college football playoff. The NCAA can't say, well, we've got stone cold proof now that Michigan cheated. We're taking away their college football playoff national title. They can't do that. They don't have the authority to do that. They can vacate regular season wins like they just did with Kentucky. Would that matter? No. It would bump them down a few rungs on the all-time wins list. That's really all it would do. It doesn't do anything about last season, really, right? You can't vacate Michigan fans' memories of last season, and this has been another one of my talking points to Michigan fans, especially once it became clear that nothing was going to happen to Michigan last season. I was like, y'all don't even have to worry about it anymore. Now that we know nothing's going to happen to Michigan in real time, the playoff committee's not going to do anything. The Big Ten's not going to ban them from the Big Ten title game. Now that you know none of that's happening, you don't have to worry about anything, because you're going to get to watch Michigan play in all these big games. You got to see them beat Alabama in a playoff game. You got to see them win the national title. No matter what the NCAA now comes back and does, whether it's today, tomorrow, next week, a year from now, whenever they finish this up, nothing they do is going to take away the memories or the enjoyment that Michigan fans got out of last season. Literally nothing they can do about that. So as a Michigan fan, you really don't have to worry about anything now. Number one, your coach is gone. It doesn't matter what they do to him. Hell, they just slapped Harbaugh with a 4-year show cause today from an unrelated issue, going back to recruiting violations during COVID. It's a nothing penalty. Not only is Harbaugh not at Michigan anymore, he's not even a college football coach. He's in the NFL. So you slap him with a 4-year show cause? Nobody cares. I guarantee Harbaugh doesn't care. Michigan doesn't care. Michigan fans don't care. You know, a show cause order, a show cause order means if any college football team wants to hire Jim Harbaugh, two things have to happen. Number one, they have to sit in front of an NCAA board and convince the NCAA board why they think it's a good idea to bring Harbaugh in as their coach. That's number one. And number two, they have to then agree, okay, if we hire Harbaugh, we agree to suspend him for the entire first year. Who doesn't matter? He's in the NFL coaching the Chargers. So again, that issue is unrelated, but just think about it. That was 4 years ago. The COVID infractions that Harbaugh has just been punished for. Literally in the last day or two, the show cause order, 4-year show cause for recruiting violations in 2020, that was 4 years ago. Michigan won the national title in 2023. So what? In 2027, what are they going to do? Issue a report saying that Connor Stallions is barred from all college football sidelines? Who cares? It won't matter. There was one opportunity to correctly fix this problem, and it was during the season last season. And everyone with an opportunity to do that dropped the ball. That's my thoughts on it. I couldn't care less what NCAA penalties end up being handed down to Michigan as a result of this, because the only penalties that could have mattered, that ship has sailed. That ship has sailed. And it literally means nothing, in my opinion, now, what the NCAA decides to do. I don't know. Y'all can let me know down below what you think about the entire situation. Obviously, there are going to be a lot of people who, from now to the end of time, look at Michigan's 2023 national championship as tainted. About those people, to the Michigan fans, I would say this. Just like no one can take your memories away, you don't have to worry about anything the NCAA does and all that. You don't have to worry about what other fans think about your national title. The reality is there's going to be a lot of people who look at Michigan's 2023 national championship as tainted. Not everybody, a lot, not even, there's even Michigan fans who I've heard from that say, I don't care about the sign stealing thing. It means it's not that big of a deal. I don't care. And you know, to those people, Michigan won the 2023 national championship, and there's no asterisk. There's no yeah, but it's just they won the title. But there are going to be some people who look at that national title as tainted. You're, as a Michigan fan, you're just going to kind of have to accept that going forward. You're always going to have that national title. No one's taking it away. You're going to have the memories of an amazing season. Maybe you got to go to a few of those games, and you'll have stories to tell to your kids or grandkids, you know, down the road about, you know, your experience watching that Michigan team, and no one's ever going to take that away. But there are going to be people who look at that and go, Michigan won the 2023 national title, but that was the year they got caught cheating with the Connor Stallions and the sign stealing. And, you know, that's just kind of the way it's going to be. But anyway, that's a sort of rambling stream of consciousness video on what I think about Michigan, kind of a recap of what I said last year when it was all going on, and what I think about the new stuff that has come out, which really isn't new. It's confirming what anybody with a brain already knew. Michigan was cheating. They were involved in a complex, convoluted, detailed sign stealing operation that they knew were against the rules, and they did it anyway. And no one did anything about it. And that's just what it is. Anyway, appreciate you watching. Have a good morning. And I'll talk to you again soon.